don't take disagreements personal. People disagree with us. Smart people, really smart people, disagree with us, and that's okay.
So with me today on Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda is Matthew Mittelberg. Matthew is a friend, and he's the son of another friend, Mark Mittelberg. But Matthew is quite the apologist, speaker, and writer in his own right. He's an experienced Christian teacher. I can tell you that from us doing some ministry together. He's spoken at universities and churches. He's spoken at conferences, youth events. He's great at youth events, by the way. He really does understand the heart and mind of those who are younger folks who know he knows what to deal with and the issues that they're facing. So I highly recommend that you go to his website, Matthew Mitt, M-I-T-T, MatthewMitt.com, and find out more about him and book him. You'll not regret it having him at your event. He's got a YouTube channel that may or may not be up and running by the time this airs, but whether it is or it isn't, you should look him up online anyway, because there's other videos of Matthew doing stuff on YouTube. And he's agreed to be on Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda. And on top of all that, he's a handsome devil as well. So it's
Wow.
great. Yeah, it's great to have you on, Matt.
Great to be here. Thanks so much, Abdu. I don't know if I've ever been so hyped up as you did just then. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And by the way, also by the time this hits our channel, you may or may not be done with your educational journey so far, or at least let me say reaching a milestone. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about that, if you would.
Yeah, I'm getting my master's of philosophy of religion at Palm Beach Atlantic University,
Okay.
and I've had a wonderful time studying philosophy and learning how it can be integrated into apologetics and
Mm.
some of the foundations of some of the arguments that we use in apologetics, how they can be supported philosophically. So
Oh,
it's been great.
good, good. Well, that will keep up my track record of having guests who are more qualified than me to be doing this kind of stuff. So it's great to have you, Matt. Well, let's get into it. Why don't we share? You can share with us a time when you coulda, shoulda, or woulda done it differently.
Yeah. When I heard the premise of this show, there was one story that just leapt out at me right away of a time where I was very fresh to sharing my faith, very fresh to having these kinds of spiritual conversations. I was homeschooled growing up, and so I had a very Christian environment, lots of Christian friends, not a whole lot of non-Christian friends, until I started working at Apple. I was a salesperson at Apple, and I was on my breaks. I was having all these conversations with my coworkers, and I was getting to know them. And this one point, one of my managers, he was a very philosophical kind of guy and very conversational. And he said something. I think he quoted Nietzsche or something. But the point of the quote was that we can't know any objective truth. And I just remember this like hot burning anger building up inside of me, and this sort of feeling of like, how dare you like question my most cherished, deeply held beliefs. And that just sort of bubbled forth in this this kind of angry tirade against what he said. And I had all these arguments. I had all these, you can't say that objective truth doesn't exist, because then you could just say, is that objectively true? And I had all these things that I could say, and I started going off, and he just was like, whoa, slow down. Okay, let's calm down for a second. I'm just asking the question. I'm not making any conclusions. Like, let's have a conversation about that. And that was a huge lesson for me, just to go, wow, okay, let's slow down. Let's talk about this. Let's have a calm, collected conversation. And then maybe we can make some progress. And funny enough, we once we slowed down and we actually talked about it, by the end of the conversation, he agreed with me. He actually agreed, yeah, I think there is some objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me slowing down and saying, whoa, I don't have to react emotionally to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's such a key aspect of these conversations, is that when you're talking about deeply held core convictions and someone differs, you can take one perspective, and it's, thank God they're asking me about these things, because now I get to share about them, or I get to hear what their issues are. Or you can say, how dare you? And I think that the human nature, and I've fallen victim to this plenty of times, where I started even with the first attitude, like, oh, good, we get to talk about this. And by the end, I'm all in a tizzy, man, and I'm all hot under the collar, and my blood
Mm.
pressure's rising, and I'm like, what? How did I get from there? I started off with such a great attitude. I just love that it happened in the reverse for you. Is that it
Yeah.
started off one way, it ended up another. That's really great. So, give us a takeaway. What do you think? What's a good takeaway that someone should take from your encounter, and maybe they can. I'm sure they can identify with it. I'm positive they can identify with it, because who hasn't had that about anything, let alone matters of faith? So give us a good takeaway.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. I mean, it's just as if somebody was questioning, one of your deepest held relationships and saying, that person isn't real or that person doesn't love you. Of course, you're going to feel that. But I think the three things that I thought of was one, don't take disagreements personally. People disagree with us. Smart people, really smart people, disagree with us, and that's okay. I think in that moment I felt threatened because I thought, wow, this manager, this person in authority over me disagrees with me on this. What if I'm not right about it, and so we can agree to disagree. We can disagree without taking those disagreements personally. The second thing was to listen more than you argue. I had all of these things to say, but it wasn't until I stopped, I slowed down, I listened to him, I actually listened to what he was trying to say, and I asked him questions so that he could think through what he was saying and actually think through, wait a second, what if I apply that claim to itself? Or what if I apply that claim to other claims that we think, that are objectively true? And once I slowed down and started that conversation, we made a lot more progress. And then the third point was that we grow through practice, because I had all this information. I was prepared, right? I knew all these arguments. I had lots of preparation, but I didn't have much practice.
Mm.
And so when I hadn't had these kinds of conversations before, it was like I didn't know how to actually engage. I didn't know how to have those kinds of conversations. So
Mm.
it's only through practicing, it's only through doing that we really learn how to have spiritual conversations.
Boy, I'll tell you, if there was a one quote, friends, that you could pull out of this, it was that last one, especially. Because everything you said was valuable. I really appreciate everything. And the number 2 point about listening more than you talk, or asking more than you sort of state. It's been a repeated refrain from a lot of the apologists and speakers
Mm.
here as well. So it bears repeating. But the last one is really important, because I think we can mistake preparation for practice. We can mistake looking at the outline and going over your materials. And let's say you got a friend, I'll give you an example. Let's say you got a Jehovah's Witness. And this has happened to me before, where a Jehovah's Witness is coming over, and I told him, hey, could you come back next week? We'll talk about this, and I want to center on the deity of Christ, and I do all my research, and I look at all my materials to say, these are the verses they're going to use, and I know where they're going to go with this, because it's pretty formulaic, and I know it. And it's one thing to be prepared to respond to all that. It's another thing to actually be in the engagement, in the middle of all of it, when a real flesh and blood person is saying, with some level of passion or whatever they've got going on, that statement. And so you can only prepare so much by reading the stuff. Practice is the way to do it. You can learn how to shoot a layup, but until a guy's guarding you, you don't know how to shoot that layup around a guy.
That's exactly
Um,
right. That's exactly
so,
right.
boy, you've offered a really valuable insight that I think is just really important. Friends, nothing prepares you like practice, and practice means you got to do it more often. With people who maybe you would do a couple of mock conversations, but nothing prepares you like actually doing it. The Lord will be there for you. I've had plenty of missteps but the Holy Spirit can't make a mistake. And so if you pray it up beforehand and you practice, you'll be fine. So
Yeah.
that's a
And
good
there's a lot of
reflection.
you, I think, that are listening to this show or watching this show that know a lot of apologetics. You've been studying this for a while. You're passionate about this. You know that your faith is true, and you're sitting on a mountain of evidence that you need to learn how to communicate. You need to
Mm.
learn how to share that with people, the average person, because it's easy to assume. I meet an atheist, and then I equate them to Richard Dawkins, and suddenly I've just assumed
Yeah,
that I know exactly
yeah,
who they are and what they believe, and it's not true. These
yeah.
people, every person has their own beliefs and their
Mhm.
own way of thinking, and we need to be willing to engage with them, to listen to them, to ask them questions, and to learn how to have those kinds of conversations.
Yep, and nothing teaches like experience. Well, Matthew, thanks so much for joining us. All the best to you on the endeavors you have planned. Do look for him. Friends, go again to MatthewMitt.com. Take a look. Invite him to your event. He's a great evangelist. He's a great teacher. And you will not be sorry for having done so. I am certainly not sorry for having cheered you on from the sidelines and right next to you as well. And I hope we get to do it again in the future, my brother. Thanks again for being on Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda, my friend.
Thanks so much, Abdu. Really grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, friends, this has been Coulda, Shoulda, Woulda. Until next time.